Seeing none, I'll then move on to an approval of the agenda as amended. Any comments or questions about that? Mayor Daw will move that. Councillor Abel will second. Comments or questions about that? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Determination of items requiring separate discussion. I'll give everybody a moment just to get settled. Item number 1, the memorandum from Director of Parks and Recreation Services with regards to the tree protection bylaw. Councillor Gartner. Proposed sign bylaw. Abel. Fees and charges update. Facility project status report. Item 6, the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame. Mr. Mayor. Number 7, the application for the zoning bylaw amendment. Seeing none. Number 8, Heritage Advisory Committee. Number 9, Accessibility Advisory Committee. Number 9. Number 10, Tree Protection Bylaw. We'll pull that as well. Just actually, we won't pull it for now. Yeah. Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. I think we should pull 10, if you wouldn't mind, although I haven't had a chance to look at it. But did you pull number 3? Has number 3 been pulled?
No, it was not.
Could you do that?
Happy to.
And I did not want number 9.
You did not want number 9. I don't think we had you for that. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. The adoption of items not requiring separate discussion. Looking for a mover, Mayor Daw. For seconder, Councillor Abel. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Delegations, it's marked down as Ms. Van Loo, but I believe Afshin Bazaar will be. Okay, you'll introduce him. Sounds great. And just, I'll be looking for a motion to extend the delegation by 5 minutes to bring you to 10. Councillor Thompson. Mayor Daw, all those in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you, Mayor and members of Council, for the opportunity to delegate this evening, and it is my pleasure to introduce Afshin Bazaar. Afshin is the manager of building services. He has also been the lead on this project, and Afshin is going to provide you with an overview of the project to date and the proposed changes to the sign bylaw. So, Afshin, if you could come to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this presentation is to update a member of council with respect to the status of this project and go over some of the highlight of the changes and briefly talk about the next step, and then I would be glad to answer any questions. We started this project at 2012 as a departmental initiative, and we had a few objectives in our mind, which was providing more flexibility with respect to permanent signs, creating a better balance between business needs and visual quality and appearance of the community with respect to temporary signs, and also streamlining the process by providing delegated authority through with respect to scope limited sign variance applications, and also providing the option of advanced approval of the signs through the site plan process. And of course, by providing more flexibility through the sign bylaw, we are trying to aligning the sign bylaw with objectives of the town strategic plan in promoting economic opportunity and encouraging more sustainable business environment, and also providing clarity and consistency in the bylaw, and updating the bylaw to reflect the changes in the sign industry and sign technology. And at the very early stage, we try to identify the major stakeholders and we try to get them involved. And some of these stakeholders are listed there. And we met with Economic Development Advisory Committee and Chamber of Commerce and provide them with the information package and feedback sheets. and we collect some of the ideas and insights through our meetings. And also, we posted this information package and feedback sheet to the town's website, and through that we collect some feedback from business owners and residents. And also we went through the database of our records and through all the sign companies that we dealt with before in the past, and we send them directly the letter by mail, including information package and feedback sheet to get some feedback from them. And of course, as our day-to-day business, we've met with lots of builders and developers at the counter, and we received lots of feedback, verbal and through the phone. And last but not least, we have a discovery session with town staff, especially those who are directly involved into sign permit application process. Initial feedback we received from various stakeholders were positive and aligning with the project objectives. And some of the patterns that emerges as a result of these feedbacks were number of wall signs being too restrictive. This was basically actually number one cause of sign variance applications. The other one was concerned with respect to the length of sign variance application process. Also, there were some requests to reduce the amount of temporary sign pollution, and mainly with respect to election signs, sandwich board signs, and other inexpensive unsightly signs. Also, there were some requests from the mobile sign companies with respect to additional time allocation for mobile signs. And the last item came from town staff, actually, was requiring sign permits for certain type of temporary signs for better tracking and improved compliance. So as a result of all these comments and insight, we went and we basically drafted a bylaw. And as attachment to the report, I provide you with the 40 items as a highlight of the changes. Within limited time that I have, I'm not going to go through all of them, and just highlight some of the key changes that are important. Number one would be the number of the wall signs. We went through the history of sign variances that have been granted in the past, and we realized that number of wall signs has been the most cause of the sign variance. And we are suggesting to remove the restriction on number of wall signs to provide more flexibility without increasing the maximum allowable sign area on each elevation. For example, on the illustration, you can see on the building on the left, one wall sign being proposed with the maximum area, and on the building on the right, it's the same building. Now they're proposing 3 signs with a total aggregate area which is way less than 1 sign and have less visual impact. However, that building and that proposed signs require sign variance because they're exceeding number by 2. The other scenario would be like a strip plaza, like this illustration, and where the business owners, for example, the owner of Unit B, would have to make a choice between having a sign either in the front of the building or the back of the building. In most cases, of course, the business owner would rather to have signs at the front of the building where the main entrance is, and that's prevent them actually to fully appreciate their exposure to the street. So by removing this restriction, we are actually helping business owners to attract more business to their unit. Next changes is the changes in the sign variance process. We are suggesting that by providing delegated authority for authorizing sign variances within specific scope limits in order to reduce the turnaround times in processing the variance application and reduce the variance fees. By that, we actually in the bylaw, we specify certain scope limits. If the sign variance request falls within those limits, would be authorized by the director. And in case of their application denied, they have, the applicant have this option to appeal to the council for approval. And of course, any application that exceeds those limits directly requires council's approval. This is basically how to reduce the time frame and also the less application fee. Next item is we call it effective site plan approval. We are trying to provide these options for the applicants who are applying for commercial development to include the sign approval process in combination with the site plan application. So if they choose to use that option, building department will review the proposed signs and comment on a non-compliance area, and that will be reflected on an application, on a planning report, and council will have the choice to approve the commercial development with or without signage. The next change is happening in the temporary section of the sign. With respect to election sign, currently we have very brief election signs, and in many cases it's not clear and silent about location of the signs, and that's created numerous complaints from the residents in the past. And we drafted brand new section basically, and we are trying to address those sign pollutions and some of the concerns raised by the council, and also align our sign bylaw with the regional sign bylaw for the better coordination for the enforcement perspective. On the attachment, again, you can see more detail of the changes. And I believe it's item number 32 to 36. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just want to briefly touch based on location of the sign. And what we are proposing right now is that we are proposing one sign per applicant per private property, and on a public land, the town land or regional right-of-way, as you can see on the map, we identify few intersections that has no direct impact to the immediate residential neighborhood. And we are allowing signage within those intersections, 2 signs per intersections, and the intersection being defined that within 50 meters of the center intersecting lines of the intersections, and of course excluding any streets or sight lines, roundabout, any boulevard, center median. And basically those blue lines represent the regional right-of-way. And of course any sign being installed within that right-of-way are subject to York Region's sign bylaw. Sure. And then we are adding also some changes, like we are requesting sign permits for banner sign and feather banner sign, which, as you can see, there are new trends in the sign industry. We'll try to get them under control. We are trying to put some prohibition basically on sandwich board sign. These are real photos being taken in a town, and most cases these signs being placed on the town's property, and it's very unsightly and creates mobility issues and creates safety concerns and liability since being in the town's property. So we're proposing to ban these signs. There are some editorial changes which I'm going to go through it. The application fee is being revised and updated. This is the diagram that indicates where we are right now with respect to temporary and permanent sign. Temporary sign on the top diagram, you see we're at the bottom on left side, the red one, where we are right now. And we're proposing the green one, which is still slightly lowest below the neighboring municipalities. On the permanent sign, the fee structure is a little bit different. There's a base fee, and then goes by the per square meter of the sign. And we are at the black bottom line again, and we are proposing that red dashed line, which is reflect basically the time, resources, effort. Next step would be, basically we are proposing as part of this report that this draft, the first draft bylaw, to be referred to the Economic Development Advisory Committee and the Chamber of Commerce, and also be posted on the website for the final review and comment. And then upon receiving the comments, staff will report back to the council for the approval. And then we get to education and its communication phase. And we will meet with the individual commercial property owners and We're proposing 6 months transition period, during which we'll do that education and change management piece, and after that we get to more proactive enforcement step.
Thank you. So we'll start with a motion to receive. Mayor Daw, Councillor Gartner. Any comments or questions to Mr. Bazar? Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. I'm not quite clear on election signs. So, excuse me, you're talking about intersections. You did mention roundabouts and some other areas. So we will or we will not be allowed signs on roundabouts and center medians, etc.?
No, we are not allowing signs in roundabout and intermediate. And I mentioned here, for the purpose of this section, an intersection has been defined
Right.
as town-owned lands within 50 meters of the point of intersection of the center lines of the intersecting street, and shall exclude any roadways and areas used for vehicular traffic and any center median, roundabouts, traffic circles, and traffic islands. So we are excluding that.
Thank you. And what about, a lot of us put our signs along Yonge Street on the boulevard areas? Is
Councillor
that?
Gardner, it might
Should I
make more
wait?
sense, we can ask those questions about when we
Thank
get
you.
into
With
the actual
report?
item.
Thank you.
If there are any questions about the presentation, Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Just quickly, can you put the slide back up that dealt with wall signs?
This one?
That's fine. That's perfect. So you indicate that there's no more restriction on the number of wall signs, but what happens in the case of a business that has multiple businesses within? I'm thinking of a medical building, for example, that might have a blood lab, x-ray, pharmacy, clinic.
Well, actually, this change will help them a lot because right now, if it's all within one premise, we are allowing one sign. And in that case, if there's, for example, let's say, there's different type of business happening within the same premises, we can, there's no restriction on the number of wall sign, and basically the amount of the wall sign would be allowed based on the length of the wall, which is we're keeping the current restriction of 0.75 square meter per linear meter. So what basically we're saying is that you get this much of a sign per length of the wall, you can divide it any way you want because there's no more visual impact, right? It's only create more unnecessary maneuverings.
Seeing no other questions, all those in favor of receiving and referring? And that is carried. We are now on to presentations by the advisory committee chairs. Anybody wanting to present? Seeing none. Consideration of items requiring separate discussions. We will start with item number 1, which is the tree protection bylaw. At the moment, it's just a moment to receive for information. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Kim, Mr. Mayor, any comments or questions about this report? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's approved. We're now on to item number 2, proposed sign bylaw. The motion is to receive, refer to advisory committees, and ask staff to report back. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Abel, is there a seconder? Councillor Kin, any comments or questions about this proposed sign bylaw? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you to Ms. Van Leeuwen, perhaps, with respect to the election signs, is it conforming to the regions? And I can't remember what that is off the top of my head, but have we done what we can to conform to the region?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we have. We have aligned the provisions of our bylaw with their bylaw, being 2 signs per intersection, the size limits as well. We've modified to align with the regions and also the duration to which the signs can be placed. So we've mirrored the region's provisions in that regard.
And again, a follow-up, Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. Van Leeuwen. Do we know when it's going to EDAC and the chamber, and what a rough timeline is?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we will go to the EDAC committee. We will provide the same presentation as soon as we can get on their agenda. We're hoping that the commenting period we will finalize at the end of this year and come forward in the new year with the proposed sign bylaw.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Through you to Ms. Van Leeuwen. Ms. Van Leeuwen, it says in the report that sandwich board signs are going to be recommended to be not permitted. And I'm curious to know whether you've had some initial feedback or not with that one, because typically retailers like sandwich board signs, and so I'm interested in hearing whether you had some initial feedbacks or not, or to understand more the rationale for it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have not heard specifically from business owners, but when we did meet with EDAC and the Chamber of Commerce, they were very supportive of removing the provision that allows for these sandwich board signs. As mentioned, currently in our bylaw, they're not permitted to be placed on town's right-of-way, but typically they are, because that's where they get their exposure, which creates, as Afshin has mentioned, mobility issues. There's concerns when, there's weather that kicks up and they fall over, and then they could be a trip hazard. So there's those kinds of concerns, as well as they do tend to be distracting for drivers. So we are recommending removing the provisions that allow for them, and both EDAC and the Chamber of Commerce were supportive.
Great, as long as we've vetted it, because I think that would be typically one of the things I would hear, feedback on. My second question, through you to Ms. Van Leeuwen again, is with regards to mobile signs. You're asking for an increase in the fee up to $100 to keep it on par with neighboring municipalities, is my understanding. But the rationale was about resources and the amount of work involved, but typically it's been my experience, especially with mobile signs, they always put them in the same spot pretty much, especially when you look at retail properties like the smart centers or otherwise. It's pretty well always in the same spot over and over. So is there more than just resources in terms of the fee increase?
It's really to reflect the resources and the effort in processing the permits. Property owners apply for the permits. We review the application. We perform 1, possibly 2 inspections, and then we turn that mobile sign over to the next business who may take advantage of that sign. So it's the fees have not been adjusted since 2004. So this is really just about adjusting fees to reflect effort.
Councillor Abel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, with the mobile signs, and I think I brought it to your attention because a couple of businesses have brought it to my attention. They are allowed to put a mobile sign for their election so many times a year. Could you just sort of review that? Because the request was that they would like more opportunity to put signs.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the current bylaw permits for up to 8 weeks per year, and we have expanded that to 12 weeks. We've also provided a provision that allows for 2 mobile signs per property based on the size of the lot itself. So for larger commercial developments where you have more businesses and there's more need for those mobile signs, we have expanded the number of mobile signs up to 2 from 1.
Thank you. So in review, if I may, if you had a bigger property and they were allowed 8 weeks, but there were a number of businesses, they may not have the opportunity because everyone had to have their turn. By allowing 2 signs, that gives twice the opportunity, and you have gone from 8 times or 8 weeks to 12, so you've expanded that. Thank you very much.
Councillor Gartner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going back to my question on election signs, will they be allowed on the boulevards?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they'll be permitted at intersections, and the intersections as defined as Afshin has explained on the boulevards.
Okay. There's a comment in here about a freestanding, I think, canopy sign. Could you just tell me what that is, please? It's page 14, number 26.
Freestanding canopy signs are, they're like, almost like a tent type of structure where they're not attached to a building.
Thank you. I think a lot of work has been done on this, and I really like it. Thank you. My comment is that we have bylaws in place now, and then we will have this new bylaw, but there are always contraventions, and the sandwich boards especially are out. I mean, the businesses don't take them in. I understand why. And also with the banner signs, there can be more than 2 banner signs. So what do we do? Is it complaint driven? Is bylaw going to be checking this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are suggesting that a 6-month transition
Right.
period occurs that allows us to reach out to property owners, particularly commercial property owners, and have those discussions with them, educate them on the new provisions of the bylaw, advise that we will be taking an active enforcement approach to this new bylaw.
Thank you. And I know we want to do everything we can to promote our small businesses, but at the same time, it really doesn't look very good. Thank you.
I've got Councillors Kim and then Abel for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Van Leeuwen. Recently, the town initiated the kids' safety sign program, and because the town is not subject to the temporary sign bylaw, there are no restrictions. So are there any, to my knowledge, are there time restrictions in terms of how long these signs can go on for? Like, can they be put away in the wintertime, bring them back in the spring, and then the 2017, 18, like, or is there an end date to our town exemption?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a town-initiated campaign, and as this is a new campaign, we are going to monitor this campaign over the next year, and depending on the number of concerns that are raised, the issues that we experience, we will report back to council on any adjustments to that campaign.
You know, like most members of council, you know, I'm not in favor of huge sign pollution myself. I mean, the only reason why I was a proponent of the education program was because it seems like in terms of reckless drivers or speeders, especially in small streets where there are no sidewalks, there's no other way to educate the public and the residents themselves other than through these signs. It seems like there was really no other choice but to educate people through kind of peer pressure through these signs. But I think going forward, it would be prudent to probably have some kind of an end date to these signs, whether it be 2 years or 3 years or something to that effect anyway. Thank you.
Councillor Abel?
Would this be my final time as well?
You got it.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I've made a huge list, so how much time you better put the timer on? As far as election signs go, I noticed that with the presentation that election sign boulevard, as I called it, Henderson, is omitted from putting signs on the boulevard there. Did I get that right through you, Mr. Chair?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just looking at the map here. It appears you are correct. What we, you know, when we initially started looking at intersections that would be appropriate, we're keeping in mind the impact on the surrounding residential neighborhood, so and residential properties, and it became very challenging as we would be permitting signs in on the right-of-way in front of people's property that may create some concerns for that individual property owner. So we tried to look at intersections that really would not have an impact on the surrounding residential neighborhood.
It's just that Henderson is just backyard, so it's, in my mind, it's not affecting any residential. But I mean, that's where I put a lot of my signs, both times. And I saved them all, so I'm not going to be able to put all my signs down. I've got too many signs because there's not enough spots. Oh, lawn signs, very good, Councillor Gardner. I'll have to concentrate on that. So anything, I think the fair comment with 28 councillors running and 2 for mayor, there was a lot of signs. It was crazy. So it's good that we're doing something along those lines. I mean, I remarked on it both times that we should have greater constraint, and we had a notice of motion from Councillor Marakis, who got that in right away. So we'll take our time, we'll get feedback. We still got 3 years, so we'll do it right. Heritage signs on Yonge Street, I call them heritage signs because some of the buildings along Yonge Street and Wellington are allowed signs, but one of the bylaw constraints or protocols is that it has to be 8 feet above. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm on the right line. So one such heritage place could discreetly put it below that and accentuate their heritage building, whereas if they had to go 8 feet up, it's blocking what the heritage building is. So we're trying to promote the heritage aspect, and if you say, well, you can only put a sign at 8 feet, it's counter. So I'm wondering if we can't make some sort of provision, or perhaps when it goes to economic development, that might exempt designated or listed buildings along the promenade corridor, which would be Yonge and Wellington specifically, that would allow them an option to put a sign a bit lower so that we could feature the attributes of what our community is, and that's the heritage in these regards. So I didn't see that. I never brought it to your attention, but I am bringing it to the attention of General Committee right now. As would that be possible?
Councillor Abel, I think that would be a valid amendment, that you'd like staff to investigate that option.
I thank you, and I was going to actually put it through economic development as a recommendation to bring it through that way. But if the suggestion is an amendment, I'm all for that. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Kim. Just a little bit of background, perhaps, Ms. Van Leeuwen, about the feasibility of doing something like that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can certainly look at different options for the promenade and heritage areas. In fact, one of the provisions of this bylaw requires that any signs within those areas are subject to a review by planning, specifically with respect to the heritage attributes. So we certainly want to promote signage that, promotes the heritage attributes of the building. So we can certainly look at that, absolutely, yes.
Any other comments or questions on that amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Abel, if you want to keep going.
I'll let everyone go and then come back again, Mr. Chair.
I don't think there's anybody else, so I will let you keep going.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's everything.
All right then. Any other comments or questions? All in favor of this, what we have in front of us as amended? That is carried. Item number 3, fees and charges. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the staff recommendations? Mayor Daw will move that. Councillor Abel will second that. Speakers, I've got Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. I have a question I'll ask you at the end of this, though. Thank you. I don't see any mention in this about the dome. Through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps to Mr. Downey. Is the dome something that's outside of this?
I believe that the Dome is regulated through a private contract that we have, and it's not something that we set fees for. But Mr. Downey, is that correct?
To you, Mr. Chair. Actually, the Dome and payments within the Dome are under a licensing agreement and not part of the fees and services bylaw.
Thank you. I think there's a report pending on that, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey. Am I correct on that?
To you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Any idea, through you, Mr. Chair, any idea when we might see that?
Under new business, if we could stick to this report in front of us, definitely we'll inquire about that report afterwards.
Just was curious on page 4 about the senior center membership fee, that they've requested an increase. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Council is going to be receiving a new agreement between the Aurora Seniors Association and the municipality. As part of those discussions, the seniors wanted a determination with regards to what fees would be charged for membership. So the new agreement has identified a flat fee paid to the municipality on a yearly basis for membership to the Aurora Seniors Association, and this new bylaw reflects that.
Thank you. On page 5, the first one, I didn't know there was a combo membership, group fitness. So did that mean that if a spouse of a senior wanted to do it, they would get a reduced rate?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Chair, yes, so we have reduced rates for senior spouses.
But we won't now.
Correct.
Thank you. How much of a reduction did they get? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe it was 25%, but I'm not entirely sure. However, we felt that there was no reason to have a senior spouse discount.
Thank you. Same page, 15F, pool school instructional lessons. Is the pool being used during the day for school instructional lessons? If it is it being used a great deal?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second question, but with regards to the instructional lessons, yes, that it's primarily during the day, during off hours or off-peak hours of the pool. And I'm sorry, but I didn't hear the second part of that question.
Well, just that we would really want to encourage that for income. Is it being well used for that purpose?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I haven't got an actual figure. It is being used quite a bit, primarily in the winter months, but I haven't got an actual figure that we bring in, but it is, I know, a fairly popular program.
Thank you. Same page, page 5, very bottom. The beach volleyball courts, I see people out there just kind of fooling around, but the idea to remove them from the fee schedule is that they're mostly used for programs that the town of Aurora runs. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the beach volleyball is primarily used for pickup, so people just coming and playing. It wasn't a practical solution to call the municipality and permit them. We found that we hadn't permitted them for a number of years, so upon reviewing the fees and services, we started calling some of the issues that, or some of the fees that weren't being applied, and beach volleyball was one of those. We do, however, use them for programs, but permitting of the facility is not something we've been doing on an ongoing basis, so I recommend removal.
Thank you, that makes sense.
Councillor, if
I
I
just
could-
have one more question.
Okay.
On page, actually two, on page 24, with respect to the artificial turf field. So as far as I know, we have 2 turf fields, and this would include both the one at St. Max and at Shepherd's Bush?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Do we charge the same amount for both fields?
Through Mr. Chair, that's correct, we do.
And I walked around that track quite a lot this summer. It's an amazing field and track. It's almost like it's in a movie when it's lit up at night. It's very well used. We must be bringing in a fairly good income, through you, Mr. Chair, we must be bringing in a fairly good income. I think the only night it's not used is Sundays. Would you have any figures on that, or possibly provide us with any figures?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can provide you with those figures. However, the fees specific to St. Max do not go into the general revenue, but rather go into a reserve fund for capital repair and replacement of that field. So it doesn't go into our general revenue, but I can give you the figures of what we have collected over the past years.
Thank you. And my last question, Mr. Chair, is with respect to day camps. For example, at the Family Leisure Complex, when we rent out those rooms or the arena for day camps, we're charging a standard fee. And yet some of those camps are very, very well attended. So is there any thought that we might raise those fees to, especially for the popular program, so that the taxpayer gets some benefit from that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, actually, we have increased the fees for camp programs, and we've identified a fee increase for 2016. And you're correct, we actually had our best year ever last year, and exceeded our revenues by almost $200,000. So we had quite an uptake with regards to attendance at our programs, or excuse me, at our camps, and we are going to be increasing fees, particularly on the popular camps.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, so when you say our camps, it's not only camps that's run by the town of Aurora, but camps that are run by private individuals, companies?
With regards to private groups renting our facilities.
For summer camps?
For summer camps, those are fixed fees. The only fees that we can only charge fees that are identified within the bylaw. If council wishes to increase those fees, then they would have to make amendments to the bylaw.
Thank you. That's all of my comments for now.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, on page 2 of the report, it just states that most of the fees within this report are on a full cost recovery basis. For those that aren't, is there some sort of determination or some sort of direction that's provided why they're not on a full cost recovery basis?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the town went through a pricing policy exercise a number of years ago and identified what programs would be subject to what level of subsidization. So some programs, particularly when it comes to youth and seniors, are more heavily subsidized than other programs. So all programs are not break even. Some are revenue generating and some are not. But that was identified within the pricing policy, and our desire to identify what programs we feel should be subject to a higher degree of subsidization.
Great. I just want to confirm that there was a process around that determination, so that's great. Thank you.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Clark, I'd just like to know how the marriage business is going. Do you have a revenue figure today? Approximately?
Through Mr. Chair, I regret that I actually don't have the actual numbers. We can provide those for council next week. We are a little below forecast, but with the first year we didn't know where we would be exactly, but we are actually having some uptick on the program over the course of a few months, but we'll get you those numbers.
Like one a week or so?
Through Mr. Chair, we only offer up to 3 ceremonies every 2 Fridays a month. Some months we have not had any, but we actually had 2 ceremonies last Friday, and we have 2 coming up this Friday. So it varies. It's definitely growing the business, I would say, and there's certainly been positive feedback in that respect.
Okay, great. And through Mr. Chair to Mr. Marr, What is the general legal fees for? I mean, you, from my knowledge, you essentially work for the town, so I'm just wondering what your fees are, and may I say that it seems like you're being undervalued.
We say that of all our staff, not just Mr. Marr. But Mr. Marr, if you wanted to respond?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the general legal fees are there in case we ever have to go to court, and we estimate costs associated with time spent by legal services staff for certain matters. They're also there for things that we cannot cover that are outside the realm of what may be charged by fees. We have the right to charge on an hourly basis depending on the nature of the legal items or legal work being completed.
So this would be fees outside of normal town business that legal department would be charging the town, or you mean external clients would be charging legal?
Through Mr. Chair, it would be the amount of legal fees we're seeking reimbursement from the external people who are doing business with the town.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Abel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, thank you. This is great detail. I remember, I think it was last year or the year before, and it's important because at budget time we have to get revenues, and we've had a report on our service levels. So it's good to sort of go through this. It's very detailed. I just kind of went right to the back financial implications. And basically, it's just, as Councillor Thompson says, it's a cost recovery formula. But something just caught my eye because, say, youth soccer, and I'm looking at page 24, and say we have youth soccer that's a full field. We would rent at $8.57 an hour, and most games are of a 2-hour duration. So we would be charging the Aurora Youth Soccer Club approximately $17.14 for the rental of that night for that game. Does that make sense through you, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Downey?
Forgive me, that's the figure. Whether it makes sense or not, I guess, is, but that's the figure, $8.57 per hour. That's what we're proposing to charge.
Thank you. So in a normal game, and I coach soccer, say when they get into full field, you're looking at approximately 15 players on each team. So you've got 30 players sharing that cost. So approximately 50 cents per player to play soccer that day would be built into what the fee is charged to the soccer club. And most practices and games amount to twice a week times 20. I'm just thinking out loud, Mr. Chair. We're looking at possibly 40 dates at 50 cents, $20 of their fee would be to cover their cost of the fields. And I think when we look at providing exercise for our youth, a facility like that at that cost, I think we're doing our job to see that's a good deal. So that's probably why the soccer club is so pleased with the facilities we provide. All right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Any other comments? Yes? No? All right, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, that is carried. We are on to item number...
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, may I
Yes.
ask you a question?
Certainly.
Thank you. So I was out of the chamber to get my glasses. Did we just receive item number 1 for information?
We did, but I'm open at the end of this to go back if you're interested.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could just put Mr. Moyle on the spot.
Sure.
Thank you. My motion, which was not included with the agenda package.
Councillor Gardner, can we do this under new business?
No.
Just- We're on tonight, item number 6. I'm happy to have the discussion. And we've got item number 10 as well.
That's fine. I'll make my further comment then. I'll put you on the spot later, Mr. Moyle.
It's not really putting it on the spot. You give him notice. Item number 6, I'll take the motion that staff prepared. Councillor Thompson, seconded. Councillor Abel. Comments or questions about this item? Councillor Abel?
I would allow Mayor Daw to go forward because he pulled the item, so I'll listen to his comments and then follow up with mine. If it's okay with you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Abel, if you've got any comments?
I will continue. My comments were that I'm in favor of supporting this. I think it would look spectacular in our SARC Centre. I think there's a great boulevard for going forward, and it's good that we move to high traffic areas, and I think this is a first step going there. My comment was that we should have a sign promoting where the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame is, and it could be one that we post at the SARC, and it would be able to be moved in case we move to another location. Say we might take it to the leisure complex the next term or a couple of years down the road. At any rate, my comment, Mr. Chair, was could we have staff come back and let us know if there is something like that, and report back the advantages and the cost?
Mr. Downey, that seems like a very simple report. Can you get that done without a motion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could get some clarification in pricing the sign. Are you looking for a permanent sign or a mobile sign? Something that perhaps is added to the SARC signage that you see on Wellington Street right now? Is that?
So just to jump in, it sounds like probably a few different options should probably be prepared for us, so an amendment probably makes the most sense. Councillor Abel, would you move?
I would like, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make an amendment that we direct staff to come back with a report on a sign for the street to highlight the Aurora Sport Hall of Fame. It could be mobile or permanent. They would report back, and also perhaps upon entry into the building, just a smaller sign where the location is.
Are you okay, Councillor Abel, with staff maybe shrinking that wording and making
Yes.
it a little bit more concise? Perfect.
Oh, thank you very much.
Mayor Daw said that he would second that. Any comments or questions about that? Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition to that, I don't know if there's any will around the table to think about getting a sign on, like a highway sign we have for the cultural center. I mean, the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame is pretty spectacular with all the amazing people we have on, honoring it every year as we go along. Is there something we can investigate there? The cost may be way out of bounds, but it's a thought. A destination to our town, Cultural Center, Aurora Sports Hall of Fame.
That sounds to me like a very friendly motion to this. So in addition to looking at signage at the physical site, to look at signage on the highway as well.
Well, I thank you very much. I fully, through you,
Sounds
Mr.
good.
Chair, accept.
And any other comments? Mayor Daw?
No, I think it's a great idea. I don't think it should hold up what we want to do. So if Mr. Downey, because you have to deal with the provincial government to get that information, and that can be a challenge. So it might be taken better under advisement if we looked at it as a separate item, just so as not to delay what we're doing now. That would be my only suggestion.
And it was my understanding that this would probably move concurrent with each other. They didn't have to move in one after the other. Any other speakers to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? That's carried. Any other speakers to the motion? Mayor Daw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I pulled it simply to stress my endorsements for this. I think it's what we have upstairs has been a great start, but it's accessible, but it's not very accessible, and it's certainly not very visible. And I think that the traffic through the SARC, as has been suggested here, would be a big benefit to that whole process, and perhaps drive the need to have that sign over on the 404 or the 400. I think it's a great opportunity to start to maybe tie this in with what we're looking at with just the overall museum process that we're looking at in town as well. So I think it's a good opportunity to start to look at putting some, what's the word I'm looking for here? Synergy between some of the various things that we're doing. So I certainly heartily endorse this.
Any other comments or questions about this? Councillor Gartner?
Thank you, and I certainly think this is a much, not only more high traffic, but it's open many more hours than the town hall, so it is a good idea. Just trying to judge from the diagrams where the west arena is. Is the west arena the arena that's farther to the north?
Mr. Downey and myself had this discussion earlier
Yeah.
on. I was wondering if Sam could put that up. It's illustrated a little bit better this way.
So it's just this green area here that's by the entrance, that area that's by the entrance to the second arena? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Chair, so actually blow it out just, there you go, perfect. So this is the furthest arena upon entering the facility. And at the very end of the hall is the glass that looks out into the open space, and then to your right is the preschool room.
Right.
So this is the area. There's an existing trophy case there, and so we're suggesting the area that you see highlighted in yellow.
Thank you, and there is a lot of space there. That area could be much better used than it is.
We believe it can be better used than it is right now. It's going to require a wall, which is why there's a cost there. And in talking to the building department, we'll be looking through for a building permit to erect a wall in that particular area.
Thank you, and definitely we will need signage.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Don't see anybody opposed, that's carried. We are now on to item number 10. I'll ask for a mover to receive this. Councillor Kim, is there a seconder? Councillor Gartner? Comments or questions about this added item tonight? Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. Through you, well, it could be a two-person answer to Mr. Clerk and as well to our CIO. In the motion that wasn't included with the agenda, within the therefores, that the draft tree protection bylaw on a future general committee agenda for discussion and direction. So I'm not sure how this became just a receive for information.
Mr. Clerk, I think we'll start with you.
Excuse me, pardon me. Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. Since Council had already previously directed staff to place this on agenda for direction, staff can't provide the direction, so we're providing it to you to be received, and then Council would provide that direction. So we're providing the information, then Council provides the direction, because that was already the direction that we were given. So staff itself would not provide a direction, since it was Council who indicated that they would provide the direction.
I understand that, but when we put motions in, it's often asked, is it for information, is it for direction, discussion, what is it for? So that's why I specifically put it in my motion that it should be on the agenda for direction and discussion, assuming it wouldn't be staff doing the directing and discussing, particularly it would be council. So
I would only add to that, Councillor Gardner, that when the item was before council last, as a whole, we gave very conflicting views on what we'd like to see, to put it mildly, I think. And as such, anything that staff were to be bringing forward would in some way be entering into the debate, because it would be choosing one side over the other side of what some members of council wanted. And I agree with the clerk, it isn't fair to put staff in that position when we have looked at it, because they can't come up with a a direction that is unbiased like they typically would, because it came before council, council debated the matters, and we gave some very conflicting motions that evening, which would make it very difficult for staff to bring forward something to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been on this council for 12 years. I have seen a lot of motions. I have seen a lot of motions that have exactly these words. I didn't pull them out of a hat. And when that happens, the councillor's motion comes back to the table, and it is for discussion and direction. So I really can't follow what you're saying. So I would like to have perhaps Mr. Moyle tell me why I'm not following this and what is wrong with my reasoning on this.
I wouldn't feel comfortable answering that. Because Councillor, you're asking Mr. Moyle to reflect on your train of thought, and I don't.
Okay, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I find that this is very insulting to me. All the work I've done on this, all the work that this council has done on this since 2011, the intent, and yes, we were remiss. We sent it back to staff without giving them any direction. We were remiss. And it never came back to council. This is a council process started by this council, a fully public process, full consultation with the public, with the stakeholders. I know that there was a comment made last time that perhaps the golf courses hadn't been consulted fully, but I've checked with staff, they have. So we've gone all the way through this public process for 3 years, and our council motion is just somewhere in limbo. This was my attempt to bring it back to the table. If this attempt is not going to be successful in doing that, I would like to know from the staff or our CAO what has to be done to bring this discussion back to the table. The council process has not been completed. It just can't be left hanging in limbo.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I obviously I was not here during the discussions. I had the opportunity to review the file and to review the reports that have come forward. My understanding is that there was a staff recommendation back in January 14. So there was a draft, and the staff recommendation was for council to approve the private tree protection bylaw as attached. And a lot of work obviously went into developing the bylaw. My understanding was that it was discussed by staff or by council, and the decision was to refer it back to staff. I think I can't think of much more work that can be done based on looking at the bylaw. So I think Mr. Downey has essentially collected all the material and brought it back for council's consideration. I think you've got a number of options. One option is to simply bring the report forward and vote on it, one way or the other, approve it or not approve it. Mr. Downey can speak for himself, but I'm not sure if there's been a lot of additional new information which has been provided to his department since this went back to council. So I think it's probably time either to make a decision or to decide to deal with this issue at some other point in time. I think those are the two options that you have.
Through you, Mr. Chair, for clarification. So it would be it is on the table at this, well, it isn't because I was out of the room, but it could be on the table if we waive procedural bylaw and have it discussed at this meeting.
That is correct. And again, you were out of the room. Councillor Humphreys wasn't here at the time. If we wanted to have this discussion tonight, we can certainly do that. I would also state that, Councillor Marakis isn't here right now. Councillor Tom isn't here right now. If memory serves, they do have very strong opinions about these. It might be worth it to wait until next meeting to have that discussion at council. Or we could refer this or defer this to a separate GC meeting.
I'm Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. I think there are members of the public who intend to come next week. So I would, and I'm fine with not discussing it. Everything is in here, as our CEO said, and actually it was presented to us in 2013, in October 2013, the complete bylaw. And the last time that staff brought it back, they did give us options, but they also said at that time that as far as they were concerned, they had fulfilled their mandate, which was to bring forward to council the best tree protection bylaw that they could present to us from all of their research. And I do know a lot of work went into that. So thank you, Mr. CEO, for mentioning that was a 4-department committee that spent a lot of time. So I would ask that this be referred for discussion and direction at the council meeting, if I could do that.
So we're currently looking at item number 10, which is just to receive this. Anything that happens here needs to be confirmed at the council meeting, so it's a little bit redundant if we were going to refer something for discussion, but by all means, it's a discussion that we can have at the council meeting.
Well,
So just like our typical procedure, you
Thank
could
you.
pull an item and then move a motion on top of it, just its receipt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So sometimes we are told, though, that when there is an item presented to us for information, that the intention is not to have a discussion on that. So through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Clerk, that would not be a problem at the council meeting?
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, certainly not. It is always council's discretion to consider items. I would just caution that in respect to this particular item that we're discussing right now, item 10, council can't do anything with this particular item other than to receive it for information. However, item 1, which had all the background information, council, it would certainly be in order to present options at the council table instead of just to be received for information.
Thank you. And a question, well, I won't get an answer from everyone from council, but with something as important as this, and there are 3 new councillors, I'm not sure if they would feel comfortable with just having one meeting to discuss and decide how they feel about it. So may I suggest, the report is very complete. May I suggest that they have a good look at it?
And again, we could always refer that or defer that to a separate meeting or a special meeting at council as well. Mr. Mayor.
I was going to suggest procedurally, when it comes to council next week.
Can we just deal with this and under new business? I don't want to talk too much about procedure. I thought I gave a very clear, succinct response.
Well, I was just following up on someone else's discussion on item 1.
Okay, so any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chair, I would love to hear what Mr. Mayor has to say.
I'll do it under new business.
Perfect, that makes sense. Comments or questions about this? Councillor Abel?
Thank you. Three's the charm. The item that Councillor Gardner has brought up, and Mr. Moyles referred to, was voted on in parts and failed to carry. So council did vote on this matter, and at the end adopted, send it back and see if we could come back with something else, but there was no direction or anything said with it. Councillor Gardner has brought out that last term didn't work, so we got new councillors, maybe it will work this time. So that's where we're sort of coming about. So it's just sort of, I think we should just deal with sort of the facts. I didn't want people to have the impression that we hadn't voted on this, was my only comment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I'm going to get really strict. Dealing with item number 10 right now, are there any other comments or questions relating to this item? And if there are any other comments pertaining to item number 1, new business, please. So, item number 10. Seeing no more comments or questions, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Notices of motion is next up. I don't see any. New business and general information. Mr. Mayor, I think you were up first for things you wanted to say.
Well, just to the, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, just to the item that we were discussing. Item 1 will come back at council for direction on council's or committee's recommendation to council. At that point, it could be deferred. I can safely say that I agree with Councillor Abel that I believe we beat this thing to death, and I see no benefit in moving it further. I did want to point out to our camera, which apparently is not working, explore Aurora's Cultural Heart, which is a week. No, it is this Sunday. Pardon me. I'm getting my weeks mixed up. From 2 to 4, it's a walking tour of the cultural precinct. It's a great opportunity to have a look around as to what we've been talking about. Very important, I believe. And the other thing is that I would certainly like to congratulate our 2 new federal candidates that will be serving Aurora. Leona Alslev, Wellington South, and Kyle Peterson, Wellington North. And again, to pass on my congratulations and thanks to Ms. Lois Brown, who I thought did a great job in representing our interests in Aurora at the federal government. So thanks to her, and congratulations to our new members. We look forward to working with them.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes, I thought I would share, maybe I've already done this, but the Easter Seals fundraiser, I said last week was $29,000 and it was actually $60,000 raised. It's just tremendous, and just wanted to share that. It was great.
Councillor Gartner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I reviewed the DVD of that last meeting where council discussed the tree protection bylaw. And one of the reasons that, well, it was a very confusing meeting, but there were actually councillors at this table voting contrary to what they were saying. There was so much confusion. And I think that the frustration level got so high that we decided it had to go back to staff. And I don't believe there was any resolution from that meeting to anything.
Councillor Thompson? Councillor Abel?
Really, just to comment on Councillor Gardner, that it is confusing because we have a tree bylaw and we're trying to amend it, and that's what this whole matter's about. So we will have a good, hearty discussion once again. I've prepared all my notes from before and more, and I'm looking forward to it.
I would only add, I believe that there were 1,738 people who ran for office this past election, and as we all know, only 338 were elected. So not just, the people who won or the people who've served, but everybody who's put their name forward. We all know what it takes to do that, and it's always greatly appreciated when you see people stepping up to the plate and engaging in democracy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I would very much like to acknowledge Mr. Jim Tree's presence in the council chamber. He is here for the tree protection bylaw. So thank you for sitting here and listening to us.
Councillor Abel?
Thank you. It's just in addition to Mayor Dahl pointing out the cultural heart and the walkabout on Sunday. We did this whole exercise with the Southeast District study, and of course it was a little bigger than the cultural precinct, but it is a great walkabout with Mr. Carl Bray and his staff and consultants there, and I encourage all to attend because it's really a treasure, our heritage district there, and most informative. So I'll be there, and I know there'll be a lot of other people there. It'll be very interesting.
I don't believe there are any closed session items. It is 8:17, and I'd like to call for adjournment. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Abel, comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Cheers.
That's networking.